Well, we had a good lunch here. We're going to go ahead and get started again. And we had a couple of the people that actually ended up basically, they bailed out. They are going on a video shoot to go film some Adilas clients. And so we're going to kind of keep heading and trudging along. And our goal was kind of customers and FlexGrid and some elements of time. And so this afternoon, we're going to start into FlexGrids and kind of what it is and what goes on. And first off, what I'd like to do is, what do you guys think it is? And then we'll kind of go from there, okay? Like, what you've heard or what you possibly imagine, or?
You know, by definition, I don't get an instant picture because I've never really heard anything called.
Sure.
Obviously, a flexible grid is a, you know, it's something like the first time you see a spreadsheet, it's so flexible that, you know, Bill Gates, when he came up with the whole spreadsheet concept, and then when he went to the workbook,
Sure.
you know, I mean, that was one of the greatest things. That, you know, in the beginning, there was only 6 or 8 letters that you could name, and so you had to get real creative on trying to name if you had several, because the spreadsheet was only an individual spreadsheet.
Sure.
And then once you went to a workbook, and then linking everything together in a workbook was, you know, so significant because from an accounting standpoint, the normal packages, you could get current month and year to date.
Sure.
And I like a 13 column so you can see trends and see if you've missed something.
Sure.
Because if payroll's down, you know, somebody forgot to post the last half of the month or something. And you don't always know that when you're looking at current month, year to date.
Sure.
And most systems are designed to, you know, current month and then however many months you've got. And so you used to kind of go, okay, 6 months, so divide this by 6 and this and try to do that. And in a spreadsheet, you know, you can just spread it out and see it. So you're creating some kind of a flexible grid when you're doing some analysis. And so that would be my thought is when you're talking FlexGrid.
So let's actually open up a simple spreadsheet. This will be old school. This is an older model of Excel, but like let's talk about this and kind of how it applies to FlexGrid. It might actually give you a good picture of what it does. Okay, so as you bring up a spreadsheet, basically what ends up happening is that you have rows and columns, correct? Okay, so your rows, what would those be considered?
Rows are the descriptions of the account. So if you've got, initially in my mind is 5 different revenue sources, so you know, you would have that coming down to a total of revenue for a particular month in a column. Okay,
great. So often what we do inside of a spreadsheet, I'm just trying to close that little expander there. These coming down right here, this is usually what you call a new record, okay? And potentially you have a number of columns that kind of come across the top. You can design it in any specific way, but for this FlexGrid, let's say that we actually had close to 40 different fields that go across, okay, that potentially could be assigned to a record, okay? And it could be, ideally what we do is we go something like this. What's the main ID? Like, who is the host? What type is the main host? Okay? And so then we also go into sub-IDs. And these are a number of them, whole bunches and bunches and bunches of them, okay? Let's say we have sub-ID 1, just for a second. Okay? And then I'm just going to kind of copy this across just for fun, just so you can kind of see it going our way. Say we had up to 12 different pieces of the puzzle, okay? So what I'm trying to show you is we can have potentially a ton of different ways that we connect it, okay? And then we say, okay, guess what? We also want to add these little fields called other one, which is a custom field, and then we're going to kind of copy this guy across as well, okay? I'm not going to build the whole thing out to forever, but guess what? We have 15 custom fields that you could have for special data inside your system, okay? And then we have a couple more things at the very, very end of it. We have stuff like this. We have a date, we have a value, we have notes, we have a status, we also have show hide. I'll make that one capital S. Okay, so like we're way out here into the AA, you know, way out there. Let's say that there's 40 plus fields that are in this FlexGrid, okay? So by default, do you want to fill in all of those different little pieces? Probably not, right? what we do is we basically say this. The main ID is kind of like where the host is, okay? So customer number 12, okay? And customer number 12, so say for instance, let's just go like this. Customer number 12, so he's type of a customer. Did we want to connect him to any other piece of the puzzle? There's 12 system players in here. Maybe we wanted to go with something like this. You know what? Let's connect him specifically to invoice number 23 or something like that, okay? And then we come out here and then maybe we add a date and a note. So let's just, on 4/12 of 13 he did this, and here's my note. Whatever, okay? Like, can you see how we just used a couple of these little fields? And then it's tied to this main customer number 12. Well, technically I have all of these other pieces that are available that could potentially be connected, but I may not want them to do it. So what we do in the flex grid is if I actually connect these type of things, we basically say, out of all of the connections that are possible, what was used? Oh, just this. And so we will actually shrink the entire model back down. So instead of scroll and clear out here to forever long, we basically will truncate this entire piece so it looks like this. Okay, that's all the bigger it really is because that's all the data we had to store. But if we wanted to, we could technically store tons and tons and tons of other information and data. So I'm gonna kind of just show you this, okay? We might not have the exact same numbers, but I'm gonna do from a customer to a random invoice and put a small date and a note, and I'm gonna kind of show you how all of these fields will collapse down into a teeny value, okay? And then we'll actually kind of get into it a little deeper, but let's go like this. Let's go find a fun invoice. So I'm gonna go invoice homepage. Actually, I'm right here at the map. This will be just as fast. Invoice home. Okay, so it looks like this one for the Lone Ranger. Let's say that we wanted to connect this to Shannon as a customer, which technically it's currently under the Lone Ranger customer, okay, which is its normal flow, okay? So basically what's going on there is it's like this. Lone Ranger customer is connected to a certain invoice. It's a normal connection that exists, okay? What I want to do is I want to say, instead of that normal connection, I want to take Shannon as a customer and connect her to this invoice just for fun right now, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go like this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to say, we need to remember this ID number, number 17, okay? That's how we connect it to this invoice. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually go to find Shannon. So customer, SHA. We'll find who we have. Here's Shannon, and I'm going to go to her log, okay? So at this point, if I scroll down, looks like we did one small little piece of flex grid for her, okay? And it kind of just showed a couple things, basically a detail, and a location, and a note. What we're going to do right now is we're going to say this. Let's go add another piece of flex grid. Here's Shannon. She's the master, okay? I'm going to scroll down till I get to sub invoice, and I'm going to put 17, which is the Lone Ranger invoice. I'm going to scroll all the way past all the rest of this stuff. Here's the date, and here's the notes. And I'm going to add it. Okay, so now if I scroll down, look at this. Out of all of those fields, I just added the pieces that I needed to, okay? And because I actually did a sub tie, I technically can go right to the Lone Ranger invoice with no problem. It creates a hyperlink, which basically becomes a jump to those different pieces of the puzzle, okay? So very similar to what we did inside of your spreadsheet here, we have all of these fields that are totally available, and all we did is we just used a couple small ones. And then so what we did is we just kind of shrunk it down to visually show you. But technically the flex grid has huge options. Do you need to have custom fields? Do you need to tie it to another customer, another element of time? You know, like, what do you need to do as far as connecting this thing together? It has kind of three different pieces of the puzzle, okay? So what happens inside of a flex grid is you have a couple pieces, okay? One, you have the main. Who did I get? Who is my source, okay? And once again, this could be any of the 12 players. So we could have customer, invoices, expenses, deposits, POs, users, vendors, you know, elements of time, any of the 12 different pieces here, okay? Then these sub-IDs, this actually connects it to the sub-pieces of the puzzle, okay? So all of my invoice connections would be under this particular column. All of my deposits might be under this particular column if I was connecting to sub-pieces. So we basically go like this. Let's say we have the main, and I'll just go M. We then have all the subs, and there's tons of them, okay? And let's just pretend that there's just tons and tons and tons of sub connections that you could make, okay? So we'll go S, Then we have just the generic we have the other or custom fields. We have up to 15 custom fields, just so you can kind of see like what it totally has. And then we have the generic pieces, which is the date, the note, and the value type thing. And this just has a couple little teeny pieces that are standard that we could do. Well, what we do inside of these different pieces of the puzzle is we just allow you to kind of dictate which ones you want. If you need like some of these other custom fields, you can actually name them. So instead of saying something like this, where it actually comes in and says, right here where it says other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you can technically go in and name those fields to whatever you needed. So earlier today we were talking construction. We were saying, wow, it'd be really cool if I knew linear feet, square footage, and and all these kind of different things. Let's say that we have a garden and somebody wanted us to come and do a custom plow job for their garden, but we would like to know some of their specs, or just generally like how many acres do you have, or how many square footage do you have, or whatever. What we could do is we could technically say, you know what, other one, I need you to be an alias right now, and I'm going to go with this. If I can spell, it's Q-U-A-R. Okay, does that make sense how I basically was going to use column number other one? So right here, I could technically come in here and say, hey, we have 45 feet, or whatever. Okay. So what I'm doing inside the flex grid is I can rename the column headings, and then I can associate whatever values that I need to that needs to be special. It's almost a poor man's database on top of Adilas is kind of how you're doing that. So that's one way to kind of look at how you do this type of thing. So say, for instance, I did want a thing called square footage. Here's how easy it would be. Okay, so right now, this is the Lone Ranger. I'm going to hit back, so it'll take me back to Shannon's record. You can see that right here I don't have anything that says the word square footage. Okay? If I have the admin permissions and I go to the FlexGrid homepage, so I'll go FlexGrid and home. If I have the ability to manage the custom fields, I can go like this, click, and I come down. You can see the same naming convention that we already used. I'm going to find customers. Customers, other one. Why don't we change this to square footage? Okay, we're literally naming the field, and we say edit. So now, underneath my customer record, I have my other one value has an alias of square footage. Okay, so watch this. If I go to Shannon's record now, customer, back to Shannon, and I go into her log. Okay, now if I wanted to, I could actually edit any of these different pieces, or I could add a new one and just record the square footage. So I can kind of create a one-to-many, or I can just keep adding it on, depending on how I wanted to do it. So similar to how you said workbook, so like inside of an Excel spreadsheet, you go like this. You have a sheet, okay, and then all of a sudden you have multiple workbooks that can be within your, so that becomes a one-to-many to one spreadsheet, okay? So very, very similar how we can kind of do this with a FlexGrid tie-in, just for fun. Like we could totally do an edit on this. I'm going to say add a new one, and we're just going to record the square footage, okay? So we'll come up here, we'll say add a new FlexGrid tie-in. We're going to skip the main, skip the subs. Guess what it now says? Square footage. So let's go ahead and just put something in there. 145, not inches, feet. Okay? Piece of cake, we'll just come down. I'm going to skip everything else and say add it. If I come down now, look at this. Under square footage, I now have a record that says this. And depending on what my other records are, you can kind of see it has to kind of match to totally do whatever. But if all I had was just square footage, it would be like this. Square footage, my relationship, my location, my date, the end. Like if that's all I had on a record. For instance, watch this. Let's go to Will Smith for just a second. We'll go find Will. He's under the farmer's log. Right here, I'll say add a new FlexGrid tie-in. I'll go right down to square footage. What does he have for his garden space? Just for fun. Let's say
325.
What's that? 325?
Yeah.
325 feet?
Square feet?
Sure. Like,
Yeah, that's.
anyway, we'll fake it.
That's huge.
So anyway, what I wanted to show you is see how it kind of collapsed it down to just a miniature version of that. It kind of can expand. So very similar to what you actually said, Nick. The FlexGrid, what it does is it's a virtual database that you can add data points or some sort of custom pieces on top of any of your other records that are your host records. Okay, so that's what kind of makes it sort of fun and or, whatever needs to happen. Like, say for instance on an item, say you're building something and we're in kind of the grow industry type thing. Maybe we wanted to actually add some special instructions for these pumpkin starter kits or just a for instance type thing. We could even go something like this. Okay, I'm going to switch. So instead of saying let's play FlexGrid on this guy, let's go like this. Item. I'm going to pull up my kit, my pumpkin starter kit, and I'm going to go to just either the customer or the full mode. Doesn't make a bit of difference. And watch this. I have a new little link right here. Currently, if I scroll down, there's nothing below it. See how there's nothing below it? If I come here and I say add a tie-in, I could actually kind of go like this. Make sure and sell them some seeds, some backup seeds. Who knows? Like whatever. Okay, this is just adding a generic note, but what we're doing is here's my pumpkin, here's my normal description, but all of a sudden I'm creating a one-to-many relationship to this particular piece of the puzzle. Okay, so like any of the pieces of the puzzle you can connect to, but you do have to have an original host. Okay, if we needed specific things like how many were in a package and how many was this and how many was this, like we could technically define those fields and then we could go fill them in if we needed to. Once again, it kind of comes back to your plan as far as like what you want or what you need, and it gets really kind of fun because one of the things that you can actually do is you can actually build your own pieces. So if I go back to the FlexGrid homepage for just a second, and I go to the Manage Custom Fields, you can see how I have square footage right here. I can literally, just the same as right here, how many of these guys do I want to use? I can start using whatever. And I can either say, cool, I'll just let you type in something, or maybe I physically wanted to be like, create one that says open, fenced, or gated, or something like that. Like this is just for fun right now, but watch how easy this is. So instead of actually letting me type that in, what if I actually came right here and I said, you know what, let's add another one under customer. So watch this. Under customer, I need the value number 2, and let's call the area perimeter, or what would you call it? Kind of
Enclosure status?
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, enclosure. Is that how you spell enclosure?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, enclosure status, watch this. We want to build a drop-down list, add a new field. Okay, so now if I scroll down to customer, I have an enclosure status, and I can now start building my miniature piece of the database. So let's go like this. Unknown. Okay, let's go back down here. Let's add a new one. And we're going to say fenced. What's another possible value that might be open? Community. Who knows? I'm just guessing right here. Okay, so what happens is you can kind of see that basically I'm prepping the system again. Very similar to a recipe to kind of speed up the process of what you're doing. When you actually go back here, say we wanted to go to Will Smith's, actually watch this. Why don't we come right here and, what did he have, 325?
Yes.
Let's search the FlexGrid for 325. Will Smith, 325 feet, okay? So if I search the FlexGrid, I can then go grab any of those pieces because all data is live and searchable. I'm going to click Edit on this particular one right here, and watch this. This is fenced. Can you see how we're kind of starting to build? This is technically other 1, and this is technically other 2, but now I have different pieces of the puzzle that I can actually add to that. So now if I come down, he has 325 square footage, and it's fenced. Okay? So it basically kind of like, you can build whatever you want, but that was actually a very good analogy talking about spreadsheets and how it relates. And hopefully you can kind of see how it just will keep expanding into different things. What do you want to connect it to? It literally has this kind of a level, okay? Are we dealing with one worksheet or are we dealing with a workbook? Multiple, one-to-manys. What's going on? Who's connected to who? What's going on with those different pieces, okay? That's what the FlexGrid is. It literally is about 40 different fields, and we let you say, which pieces of those do you want? Oh, cool, got it. Oh, but then it's all automatically searchable, which makes it really cool as far as, and hyperlinkable, and a hyperlink is basically the heart of the internet. That's kind of what allows you to jump from area to area. Okay, it's called hypertext. So have you ever seen on a web page where it goes like this? Have you ever wondered what this first part of the URL, HTTPS or HTTP is? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay, so hypertext is this. See how if I roll over this, and technically I'm on one page, but as soon as I click it, I virtually transport myself to another page. Okay, that's called hypertext. Okay, that's the heart of the internet, being able to connect to different little pieces. So what we do is if you actually were doing something in a FlexGrid tie-in, say I wanted to say I wanted to connect this particular fenced-in area to something that I had, like a quote out there or something just for fun, okay? Why don't we just for fun make a quick little quote for Will? So I'll go right here and I'll say new cart. It'll automatically be tied, but I want to kind of show you how I can even tie it even additionally, just for fun, okay? So right here, and I'm just going to put it under part number other because we don't have anything right now for square footage or anything like that. Say we were going to do some work for him. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say quantity of 1 and price of $250. And down here I'm going to say we will prep and build your garden for the year. Like, who knows? Like, basically.
Can you change where it says quantity? Could you change that to square footage?
Sure.
Where it says quantity.
Okay, actually, the physical name quantity, because we're dealing in a cart, you can't change that piece. You can change a bunch of the different pieces. Like, for instance, the actual item number, that whole thing is modifiable. The location, which is technically behind the scenes right now, you can modify that. You can modify a bunch of different things. But quantity, if you wanted to, you could go like this: 325 by, say it was $10 per square foot, something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So 325. I've got currently under a thing called part number other. Like we would technically want to create one, but I just didn't want to go through the whole process there. Okay. We will prep and build or whatever. How about something like this? Whatever you were going to end up doing for them or something, okay? So you say add it to the cart, okay? So basically, say he wants to know, and it's going to cost him almost $3,500 to do this, okay? Now, he just wants to know how much it was. Watch this. If I just say save quote, it'll be tied to Will and tied to this item, but it won't really affect any sort of inventory because it's just a quote, okay? So let's go like this. Save it as a quote. Okay, we haven't really done that many quotes. It looks like this is only the second quote that's actually anybody's even done anything, okay? So this is the magic number that we could then connect to Will's record if we wanted to, or to anybody else's record to kind of do whatever we're doing, okay? So watch this. Let's actually go to Will. So right here, I'm going to find just his customer log. There's a link at the top. It takes me right to Will Smith's customer log. So right here, if I wanted to, like I don't see that anywhere on this page, but there is a link that says all quotes year to date. So if I click on this, it'll say, oh, I'm technically tied to number 2. But if I physically wanted it to show up right here on Will's record, I could literally go like this. Let's go add new FlexGrid tie-in. Scroll down till you find subquote number and you put in its ID. Okay? You could technically skip everything else if you wanted to, and you could say add the tie-in. So now, down here, subquote number 2, Will Smith, like basically you can add whatever pieces you want, but it creates that hyperlink to that piece of the puzzle. Like ideally he was the only one that was connected to this. What if we actually went to a totally different customer? Let's go to SpongeBob just for fun. So here's SpongeBob. I go to log. Watch this. He doesn't have any current FlexGrid tie-ins. I can actually connect SpongeBob completely to that exact same record, no problem. This becomes kind of a one-to-many connecting out to that different piece of the puzzle. So if I click here, so technically here's my subquote number 2 to Will Smith. For this, I could add a value there or whatever. Like, hey, go look at this one, or like whatever I needed to do. Basically what it's doing is we're creating these relationships, if you will, between system players. It's kind of somewhat what the FlexGrid allows you to do. You can see that we just kept using it over and over again. It doesn't make a bit of difference.